Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Hometown Heroes. I'm Mike Kenichi, and tonight is part 2 of our interview with Ken Chidoba and Greg Spock, two key players on the 1982 Derby basketball team that had the big run to the state tournament. And guys, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. Part 1 was a lot of fun. Part 2 is going to be even better, so thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Mike.
So Ken, I'll start with you. The goal had to be, after a 3-17 season, to get into the state tournament, correct? I mean, state tournament or bust?
Absolutely. That was the goal. I think everyone strive toward that and work towards that.
Right. And now you're elected captain along with Greg and Rich Mester.
Yep.
So the three of you, I mean, did you guys kind of like right away address the team and say, listen, there's no goofing around here. If you're going to play, you're going to be committed to this team?
I don't think we had to address the team and talk. I think, as Greg said, we led by example. And I think people knew their role, and none of the BS would be tolerated or accepted, and we squashed that pretty hard.
Right.
Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So Greg, I mentioned junior year, you had a rough year as far as team-wise sports. You come off a Housatonic League championship in football. You have a tremendous game against Shelton. You had a tremendous season that year as well. So you're going into the basketball season on a big high. I mean, you just come off a championship. So your goal, obviously, was to keep the ball going, right? I mean, and keep everything.
Yes. I mean, I certainly didn't have any illusion that we were going to win the Housatonic League in basketball. But
right.
like you and Ken just mentioned, it was definitely our goal to try to make the state tournament that year. Absolutely.
Right. Now, let me ask you, I mean, had you two stopped growing at that point? Would you just say you were still growing a little bit? Or
No, I think I was pretty much the same junior year to senior year.
Right. Greg, I mean, obvious I pretty much know how you got the nickname, but who gave you the nickname Dr. Spock? Like, who's
John D. Francisco.
So it was John D.
It was John D., yes, absolutely.
You know,
yeah.
D's a funny guy because he has a lot of nicknames for people, you know, especially he coached football. He called people tiny, slim, fast, you know.
Yeah.
So D was always good for that. And, you know, I don't know if you guys are aware of this. I think you guys may have been on the team. I don't know. But D actually helped Derby beat Emmett O'Brien one year. He was doing the score clock, and he purposely didn't run the clock when Derby had the ball last. And Derby was able to get a buzzer beater. It cost Emmett the game. Rich Marazzi was furious. D told him he didn't do it on purpose. 20 years later, D finally admitted the truth. Yeah.
No, I
do not recollect that story.
So, you know, D, even, you know, not coaching, he helped the basketball team win a game. I wasn't sure if you guys were on that team.
No, that wasn't our
But yeah,
no.
that was vintage John D. He purposely didn't run the clock. Derby had like 3 seconds left, and he waited till 3 seconds to run it. So they got 6 seconds, hit the buzzer.
I can picture that.
And that was Rich.
Classic. That's classic.
That's Rich Marazzi's only loss ever against Derby.
Really?
And it was that game.
Wow.
So he's never forgiven D for sure. So now the season starts, and you know, it was a funny season because I think you guys started off, if I'm not mistaken, 2-1. I could be wrong. It was definitely, I think it was either 1-2 or 2-1, but I definitely think you started off 2-1.
I can tell you exactly. We played Emmett O'Brien at Emmett O'Brien.
Right.
And they had a very good team. You know, Paul Nixon, Johnny Black, Guerrero, Mark Ennis, some other kids there. And they were like, oh, they're going to crush Derby.
Right.
And I'll never forget, talking to my mother and Mrs. Mester, it's like, oh, wow, like, we're competing, we're beating them. It's like, holy cow, we can actually win this game. And I think we shocked some people, like, wow, this team's not bad. Because I think Emmett was loaded.
Right.
And they were expected to make states and beyond. And I think we came into their house and beat them and, like, set a tone and example, like, hey, we can be pretty decent here.
Right, yeah. I think we beat them fairly well, too. I mean, it wasn't like a 1-point game.
No, it was pretty good. Yeah. And, you know, one of the lines that Coach Morgan used, this is the funny thing about how different times were. The Evening Sentinel, it seemed like you could say whatever you wanted in the paper. And Coach Morgan, basically, when they asked him if he was worried, he said no. He goes, nobody stops Spock in the middle. And that's what he said, you know. So, I mean, he was pretty much like bragging a little bit. He had gotten the win. So, you know, he kind of had a chip on his shoulder, too, Morgan. Ken, I know your relationship with Coach Morgan wasn't great junior year. How would you say senior year was with Coach Morgan?
Well, I think, you know, you feel each other out. I didn't agree with the style of play.
Right.
But, you know, who am I to say anything? I'm just one of the players on the team. I think he knew and I knew we had something special for Derby, qualified for Derby. This is probably one of the best teams we had. all around as far as from a talent perspective. Chris Messer was a great player,
Right.
but I think from a talent perspective, we had a couple players that wow, we can do some damage, and I think he knew that, I knew that, and it's like let's all get along and for the benefit of the team, and
Right.
we were pumped and excited. I think everyone was, especially after that first game.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a lot of fun.
It's always good to get that first win. So when you start the season, we got 7 more to go. But, we'll get into it more. But there were a lot of things that could have prevented you guys from getting in the tournament. So it was a fun season, but it was definitely a draining season, I would imagine, too, correct?
Listen, Greg and I think our outlook, we're fun-loving guys. We're positive. We're optimistic. Things happen in life. I think we deal with it, and I think we made the most.
Oh, yeah.
Had a great time on and off the court.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And we just,
Right.
we enjoyed our company. He has issues. We all know that. No, I'm just kidding.
Ken, though, when I talk about unselfishness, and this team had a lot of it, and we'll touch more on it, but like I said, your junior year, you kind of had like a moment with Coach Morgan, which wasn't a great one. You were upset with him. He was upset with you. You could have easily done what so many people do. You could have either quit or you could have felt sorry for yourself and not done what was best for the team. But instead, you let it motivate you, and it made you a better player. So you were very unselfish because you could have easily just walked off that day.
I was contemplating playing CYO, and I said, nah, that's weak, and that's just a quitter attitude. And I said, no.
Now, did you talk to your father at all about it? I mean, did you have conversations?
I taught my parents, we were upset. But, stuff happens in life, and how do you deal with it? And it's life lessons.
Right.
So it's like, no, shut your mouth and just, what do I have to do to get better and earn playing time or whatever it may be, how best to help the team.
Right.
And that's what you do. I think nowadays kids just quit, give up, it's easy, and make excuses. And I don't think that's the way I was built from my parents, how they taught me and brought me up, and how I teach and bring my kids up too. So.
Right. So you guys are 1-3 at this point, and you need a win, and you play a tough Lyman Hall team. Lyman Hall for years seemed to always have Derby's number in basketball. But you guys come out there that night and get a very good win against them. And Ken, you finished with 18 points. Greg, you had like 13. And I mean, that's the thing I noticed too about you and Greg is if somebody was off that night, the other guy would pick the other one up. But Ken, talk about that game getting 18 points against a very good team like Lyman Hall with a good defense.
I don't remember all that much about that particular game, but we just had the mindset, do what you got to do to win. And I think you talked about everyone know their roles. I think come the fourth quarter, I think you and I are going to shoot that ball, and I think we made that known. You see nowadays some kids take the wrong shots or the balls.
Right.
It's like, no, we're taking the shots, get the ball to Greg, work off Greg, and see what he can do. If not, kick it, whatever it may be. But you know where the ball was going, and I think we proved ourselves, and I think the team knew that.
Right.
So.
Now, Greg, it took you till the 11th game to get your second win junior year. Now it's the 5th game, and you've already got 2 wins. Did you guys start to feel confident that, we got something here, we could do this? I mean, you're playing in that tough Hoosie League, though, and there's no easy game.
Well, we definitely knew we were a lot better than our junior year. There's no question about that.
Right.
I mean, but again, we also knew that we were playing in the Housatonic League, which has a bunch of L and double L schools, and it was going to be incredibly tough competition. But I mean, I still think at that point in time that we believed that we would be able to make the state tournament.
Right.
We never wavered on that.
No.
And we'll get on to it when we were 4-12. We never wavered. Like,
Right.
this is piss poor if we don't make the state tournament. So,
Right.
like, okay, instead of making excuses, the league, competition, what do we got to do?
Now, let me ask you, Ken, as a guy who didn't play football, because I would see this a lot when I was in high school, and I always thought, you shouldn't really play if you're really not worried about the wins. But a lot of football players tend to not care as much in basketball. Did you see any of that in high school where some of your teammates didn't care if the basketball team won? Because I think that's part of the problem, too, is I think football back then dominated so much that if you were a football player, well, I had a great football season. Whatever happens in basketball happens.
Well, I think the key to that was Ronnie Bartone. Now, Glenn and I played with Ronnie since Biddy basketball on the Giants. I think Ronnie was one of the best players on the team. He was a physical presence. I think him playing basketball, I don't think a lot of kids,
we're going to slack off, right?
Yeah, I think if he's playing, he wants it. It's like who am I to say anything about the basketball team coming off the football player? So I don't think we had anything. Good friends, Joey Sadik, people like that.
Oh yeah, the football team supported us tremendously. Our senior year.
We had great crowds.
You talk about Ronnie. Ironically, he would not come out his senior year for basketball, and he played a lot for you guys that year. So it was shocking.
20 games.
It was shocking that he didn't come back, and that probably definitely hurt that '83 team immensely. But that was a good thing too. The balance you guys had. You had a good point guard in Glenn. Mm-hmm. You had the big guy in Greg, yourself, and then you had the tough physical guy like Ronnie, who his job was to be the enforcer out there. Get rebounds, be tough, and
not shoot the ball. He knew his role, get the ball off. Correct. But
right.
We had a nice. Yeah. Everyone knew their role, sum up the parts, and it was really successful. It worked.
Right. And how were the practices that year? You guys were always intense. I mean, every practice was like a game, correct?
We wanted to pound the second team.
Right.
Yeah.
We, if they're, that's their job to make us better, and vice versa. Speed of the game. So it was intense. There was no moments off. Like, we never thought we were really good. Like, we can afford to take practices off. I think just hard work and okay, we got to work harder. We lost that game. We got to work harder.
You guys lose a tough game to Sheehan. At this point now, you guys are 2-4. But in that Sheehan game, a little guy like Glenn Gradadoria gets 23 points for you guys, keeps you, in the game. Talk about how good of a player Glenn was, and if he was ever tall, I think he could have really, advanced his play.
Listen, he had a great handle. He had a great shot. He put a lot of time. I give him a lot of credit. He worked really hard in the off season.
Right.
Very good ball player. Very good ball player.
Right.
Yeah, Glenn was an excellent point guard.
Right. Yeah. Now, at this point, you're 2-4. There's no panic yet, though, right? I mean, it's only 6 games, so you got plenty of time. But, I mean, do you panic in the sense where you feel like you're playing as best you can and you're still coming out with losses?
I remember after being Emmett, and then we you said 2-4.
Right.
I think we were pissed, we're better than this. And I think we hit a little skid in that midway point.
Yeah.
And I just think things were going a little sideways. Things weren't working. And it's like, how do we get back on track?
Right.
I mean, there was definitely some tenseness with Coach Morgan and our team at that time because, we were expecting to have a little more success from a record standpoint, wins and losses.
Right.
Coming off of that really bad 3-17 season, we didn't want to go there again,
Right. And, the thing that Derby had a lot of trouble doing over the years was scoring. But you guys always scored a lot of points. That Derby team, the 82 team, put a lot of points on the board. And that kept the team in games because, you knew teams were going to score on you. It just happens. But, the Cheshire game, another game you guys almost won. You lost by 5. Greg, you get 12. Kenny, you get 19. And, I mean, right there, you guys are keeping the team in the game. Mester had 10 as well. So, I mean, you're getting double figures from all your big 3, and that's important because everybody has to step up if it's going to be a good season.
Yeah. You look in the past, key on Chris Mester.
Right.
He's guaranteed 20 points. You key on him and stop him. Now we had multiple weapons.
Right.
So I think the balance of our team, they work hard to get to this point and to shine. And I think, people like Glenn, Rick, Kent Ritter, he came in and started the end. I think he had an impact on this team too. So we had some nice players that I think seized the opportunity, wanted the opportunity, and stepped up when needed, especially the last 4 games of the season.
Right.
Right.
And I'm jumping ahead, but.
Now, were you enjoying the season, even though at this point you're 2-5? I mean, you guys were in every game. Nobody went away with the victory, but I mean, was there frustration too? You mentioned that you felt we were better than this. We should be better.
I don't think that year there's no moral victories for us. Because
right.
we expected to win. And we didn't care if you're East Haven, Sheehan, Lyman Hall, right. Cheshire. It's like, listen, we can compete. I think we knew we can compete. We were here to win, and if we didn't win, we were disappointed.
Now,
I think we got to that level. Would you say?
I would agree, absolutely.
Did you think there were any games that you should have won that you didn't win at that point? I mean, did you let any slip away, you think? I mean, the Sheehan game was a classic game and came right down to the wire, but...
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily remember that we had any that we really let slip away in those first 7 games. But no, it's disappointing. I mean, it always seemed to be Derby where, even though it was close, we still end up like you said, getting worn down in the fourth quarter or whatever, and coming out on the short end.
Yep.
Right. You know, the Seymour game, it looked like things were going to fall apart. You guys had a good lead. Seymour came back. Again, I mean, if you told me Spock had 18, Chidoba 19, and Mester 23, I'd say you win the game. Seymour went on a late run. And again, this is almost 40 years ago. I know you guys aren't going to remember everything, but how tough was that loss for you?
Also, it's a Valley team.
Right.
I mean, you play your Housatonic League, then you have your Valley League that we always talk, in Sonia, Shelton, Derby,
Right.
Seymour, and it's like you want to make sure you're the best team in the Valley at that time. So, Greg, growing up there, we knew a lot of the players from playing 4 years and beyond.
Did you want to win that game a lot because you grew up there? I mean, did that matter to you, or?
Not any more than any of the others, to be honest with you.
Right, so you didn't have like
Yeah.
a motivation to go.
No.
Let me ask you, did your brother Doug give you a hard time at all?
No, not at all.
No.
No.
And Doug would go on to play football for Seymour, if I'm not mistaken.
No, he
correct?
played baseball for a
baseball.
a while.
Okay, yeah. So now at this point, you're 2-6, and you play a tough North Haven team. And again, another game goes down to the wire. Greg, you had 26 points and you had 19 rebounds, which is tremendous. But yet, another loss, you're 2-7. At 2-7 now, do you think like it's going to be hard to get in this tournament? Did you guys ever say it's not going to happen?
I remember I said, we spent all the time off the court together too, for the most part.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's like, okay, stuff happens. How do you deal with it and get better?
Right.
I don't think we ever like, oh my God, we expected it, and we always thought we were going to make it, and I think we knew it, and we never wavered or waffled in our belief. And I think that was a testament to the team and us that, hey, tough
Greg,
times, and what do we do?
How good is North Haven's program, though? Over the years, they've had a great basketball program. I mean,
dominant.
and you guys hung right with them, and we'll get to it, but eventually you knock them off. But how hard is it to play a team like that is so well coached and so good?
I mean, it's incredibly difficult because, they got great coaching, they've got very good players, and they're usually pretty deep as well. So,
Right.
And big.
And
I don't think the Hoosie had a bad coach in it, to be honest with you. I think
so
every
either,
team
yeah.
that, was there at that point throughout the years has always had good coaching, because I would put that Hoosie league against any league,
Well-established programs and
Absolutely,
coaches.
yeah. Long tenured coaches
Yeah.
at most schools.
I
as
think
well,
that was
yeah.
the key. Yeah.
Let me ask you, does it bother you both to see that Housatonic League went away, that they got rid of it? They got rid of it like 20 years ago. They decided to do the SCC. I think it just ruined everything.
I completely agree with you.
Right.
I
mean,
loved
it never made any sense to me.
Yeah.
I mean, much like eliminating the Big East from college basketball didn't
yeah,
make any
that was
sense.
terrible.
I mean,
like the 80s, the dominance and what it was. Yeah.
To this day, I don't understand either decision, quite honestly. Yeah.
Right. So now it's year 2. Let me ask you, do you feel Coach Morgan had a lot more confidence in you guys at that point? I mean, do you think he was a lot more comfortable coaching you guys this time around?
I think he trusted us.
Right.
And I think we knew expectations from him, what he expected of us,
Right.
and what we brought to the table.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
how we kind of gelled together.
Now, how was he during the games? Did he kind of let you guys play, or was he intense like he was in
He was
practice?
intense.
Yeah.
He was really intense.
I mean, I know about the towel biting, stuff like that.
Slamming the towel. Yeah. He
Right.
was. Yeah.
But your
I got-
assistant coaches were great assistant coaches. I think they kept them from,
Oko was the best in time. The
Well,
post
I mean,
timeouts,
they probably kept him from getting thrown out every single game, would be my guess.
Right.
I mean, there's part of me that's disappointed that I was playing every minute because, Jim Pucci was always in the stands, and he would tell me some great stories, and I was like, gosh, I wish I got a chance to see that.
You love his passion.
Yeah.
Now, was he
And-
rough on the referees too, or
He was. Listen, he was intense. So every
He was
aspect
rough
of the
on-
game.
Yeah.
right?
Respect that. Yeah.
Right. Now, Ken, did you kind of grow to warm up to him, or just enough to,
Listen, it was he and I think we resolved after our junior year, and we came to the conclusion like what's best for the team, and
Right.
and I think we both needed each other.
And now you and Greg didn't come out that much that year either, correct? You guys were always in the game, the
Oh, yeah.
entire game, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think he only went with 2 subs the whole year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, if that.
Right. I don't think he was big on,
Yeah.
rotating too many guys
I don't
in.
think it was a question of big. I think just from the talent pool.
Right.
We had guys playing multiple sports, and it's just typical. You don't have people that specialize in one sport back then. I mean, Glenn and I did.
Right.
But
you know, there'd be some games, guys, where teams would put a lot of points on you, and then there'd be other games where your defense just stepped up tremendously. You're 2-6 at this point, or 2-7, and you play a very good East Haven team, and you hold them to like 50 points. Greg, you score 15, Ken 13, and again, I always felt like as I'm reading this and I'm researching, I'm saying these two were having a competition who could score more points because you two were right next to each other. If one had 17, the other had 15. I mean, do you think you two brought out the best in each other?
I never worried about who scored more.
Right.
Never. I never even thought that in the game or any competition. We were very competitive in practice. We expected a lot of each other.
Yeah.
Right.
I just wanted to win whatever it took, and we never had that jealousy.
No.
Right.
We were too good of friends, and we wanted. I wanted. If he scored 40 a game, we won. I'm okay with that.
Right.
Or I think I am, but no. But I think we were very close, best friends, and we wanted the best for each other. Would you
Right.
agree?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And I mean, against East Haven, like I said, you hold them to 50 points. Now you get that third win, you're 3-7. I mean, now you know you got 5 wins to go to make this tournament, and you've got 10 games to get 5 wins, but you got to go 5-5 the rest of the way. That's not easy to do, 500. I mean, did you even think about that at that point, or are you just taking it one game at a time?
Well, I thought we knew 5-5, tough league, but I thought we believed that we can do it. I think we were very disappointed in our first half of the season. The way it started off, the way the first half ended, it's like, guys, we're better than this. I think we hit a lull in that middle part of that season.
Yeah.
And it's like, guys, what's not working here? And just trying to figure that out. And still compete against in the Housatonic
Right,
League.
exactly. Exactly.
And,
But we figured it out at the end.
Yeah, ultimately.
And let me ask you, I mean, the crowds were big that year as well. And that's the thing. It's like anything else. If you win, they will come to the games. You know, people get disappointed when they don't see fans at certain football games. But, you know, if you're not winning, they're not going to come. But that had to be great, too, to see, like, all these people coming to the games, you know, all the time. I mean, you would see the old-timers from Derby, the Sparrows. They'd always be there, you know, rooting you guys on. That had to be a great feeling as a 16-year-old kid.
Loved it. There is nothing better. On a Friday night, you walk
Right.
in, he would pick me up, we go there, it's like, wow, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, and like I said, and we got a lot of support too from the football players as well, which was.
I think that drove it.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we were all friends with them. I mean, Greg played,
Yeah.
of course, and I think, you know, the cheering.
I mean, would you guys get that feeling like you were so juiced up during warm-ups? I mean, could you feel it then, or like
Going to the game.
going to the
He would
game?
pick me up,
Yeah.
Right.
and we'd be talking, and we'd be walking in there, park our car, and like, wow, this is JV, and it's, you know, it's pretty crowded. And like, wow, this is really cool. And then,
Right.
of course, yeah, you know, just that adrenaline takes over,
Yeah.
and you love playing in front of a lot of people. That's what it's all about, high school sports. I mean, my God, who would not want to? That's why I said, who would not want to
Right.
do that?
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you now, the stories are a lot better as he got older, but he was on your team that year. You got any good Ronnie Leno stories that stand out from that season? You know, Ronnie told me one
Okay.
where, you know, him and Morgan got into it. I don't want to, like, give all the details, but any good Ronnie stories back then, or was he just a young kid still where?
Listen, he was a young kid.
Yeah, Ronnie was a young kid, but I'll tell you, man, I loved Ronnie Leno. I mean, Ron always had such passion for whatever sport he was playing. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I just, I loved him. I really did. Just a great guy.
Ronnie's old school. I love Ronnie. Our families grew up together, his
Right.
father and my father, and Ronnie and I played in the same Biddy basketball team together.
Oh, okay.
So we
Yeah.
used to go to games together. Ronnie was younger, but intense, passionate. He loved the game.
Very
He's a
good
great guy.
athlete, too.
Yeah.
So now you come off that East Haven win, you play Lyman Hall again, and you beat Lyman Hall, and you beat them pretty good. 2 wins against Lyman Hall in one season. I mean, I don't think Derby's ever done that. And come to find out, Ken, the next time Derby would beat Lyman Hall would not be till 1995. So the 82 team that beat them twice, Derby did not beat them again till 1995.
Wow.
Did not know that.
So you're talking, you know, 13 years later.
That's
and
amazing.
the funny thing about it is Derby was on a 39-game losing streak when they beat Lyman Hall. So that
Go figure,
was-
huh?
Yeah. So,
Wow.
but you beat Lyman Hall. Greg gets 11. You get 21. Greg, you get 22 rebounds. I mean, just talk, Greg. I know like your memory isn't great, but I mean, just to think that you had 22 rebounds in a game. I mean, that had to be a great thrill, right? Because that's the little things that win
Yeah,
games.
well, I mean, again, you know, at the end of the day, like you said, we won the game, so that was pretty much all that mattered, really.
right.
But Greg had the physical skills to dominate a game, defensively, offensively, rebounding wise. he was one of the best players in the league, and he did what he had to do. But he could control a game, offensively or defensively, and 22 rebounds is a testament to that.
Right. And Ken, you had a combined 39 points against Lyman Hall in 2 games. That's tremendous too. I think sometimes it gets a little unnoticed, but you were quite the scorer too. You had like close to 500 points in your career as a scorer, and Greg had 700. So you were right there as far as scoring went. Not that that mattered to you, but people forget you were a very underrated player as well.
Thank you.
So now you guys are 4-8, and you got to win 4 more, and you've got 8 games to do it. So again, you've got to go 4-4. You got to finish 500. I mean, do you start to sense it a little bit? Well, we're going to get this done, or are you still a little skeptical?
I'll give you a key thing that really helped. WADS, remember the radio station down in the mall in Sonia?
Right.
They did some sports show, and they said, okay, the teams are going to make the state tournament, and we weren't one of them.
Really?
I'll never forget listening to that.
Do you remember the announcer?
No, I don't, but I was pissed. So I would say to the team, like, hey, we're already counted out.
Right.
Kind of use that as far as motivation and fodder. But and I'll give you a funny story. After we came back and we won it. Remember, we and I'm jumping ahead here, but we qualified and we were at the place in Ansonia for pizza to celebrate our making the state tournament. Yeah. And we called WADS station or whatever. It's like, hey.
Oh gosh. But
like
at the time you really couldn't blame them. I mean, let's be honest. If you had to look at it, the chances of us making the tournament from a percentage standpoint probably wasn't going to be good.
He's too practical. I'm used to that motivation. Like, okay, a Rudy moment.
I want to know this: was Greg a quiet assassin, or was he? So he didn't talk a lot.
No,
he just went out
there. When he
there
talked, you better listen, because I said he was the best athlete, the strongest kid I ever met in high school, bar none. And he got pissed at you. You knew it, but he was a quiet leader. But his play spoke volumes. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
I was a little more vocal.
Now, Greg, were you ever hard on yourself, or did you just take it as it was? Like, did you ever get down on yourself?
No.
No, so you just kind of went out there and got over it right away.
Yeah. Well, your father helped you with
that. Tell me this: how was Dad after a loss, or if he didn't?
You don't want to ride home in the
well,
car with him.
Would he lecture you, or was he pretty good about it?
No, he was. In basketball, he was pretty good.
Right.
He wasn't,
so it was football more.
It wasn't too bad.
It's all levels, believe me.
Right.
Basketball wasn't too
Let me
bad.
ask you this. Would you and him ever go at it about baseball? Did he think he was better than you? Or?
No. It was probably quite the opposite. He said that I had a ton more talent than him, and
right.
Blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
Right. And Mom didn't say nothing. Correct?
No.
No. They probably went at it.
No.
Your parents.
They counterbalance each other.
Yeah.
Right.
Mom was a sweetheart and angel,
yes,
very
she
quiet.
Definitely was. So, you lose a tough game to Sheehan. Now you're 4-9. But again, 15-22. Derby has had so much trouble over the years scoring in the Hoosie. Having one guy get double figures is hard. Some games you guys had 3, as I mentioned, but you two were getting double figures every game. That's important because you cannot win if your 2 key guys aren't scoring, double figures. How much pressure did you obviously aren't thinking about it when the game's going on, but did you feel like, Ken, you had to score at least 10 or more every game?
If we didn't have a chance to win.
Yeah.
Not being there, but we relished that. Yeah. Like, we knew we had to get. I had to get 15 to 18. He had to get 20 a game, and I had to get 8 rebounds. He had to get 12 rebounds. That was like, we expected that. If we didn't, working back the numbers, if we didn't do that, we had no shot.
Yeah. Right.
But we didn't. No, it was pressure, but we loved it. We thrived on it. We relished it.
Greg, one of the things people don't realize how important it is foul shooting. I mean, did Coach Morgan spend a lot of time with you guys in practice foul shooting? Because foul shooting would play a big part in one of your victories. I mean, how important was that to him?
Yeah, again, I mean, Coach Morgan was a lot about fundamentals, and he knew the game very well.
Yes, he did.
I mean, he really did. There's no question about it. Very intense, but he definitely knew basketball. Basketball was just, I mean, he was passionate about it. And yeah, he would absolutely, I mean, we took, I can't even tell you how much, but I know we spent a lot of time with the free throw.
Now, was there a penalty if you missed a foul shot in practice? Suicides.
We would run at the end of practice, and you have to make X amount of foul shots.
Yeah.
Right.
When you're tired, fourth quarter game, game simulation, and he spent a lot of time on that.
Those were fun.
Now, how would you say you were as a free throw shooter? I mean, were you good with that too? I mean, you're a big guy. It's not easy to make foul shots.
I don't know. I might have been like 70% from the free throw line, I think.
Which isn't
something
bad
like
at
that.
all.
Yeah.
Even
Right.
better, I think.
What's that?
Even better.
Yeah.
Right.
Around there, I don't know.
And you were a pretty good foul shooter from what I remember. I mean,
Yeah, Ken was excellent, yeah.
right. But it's a very important part of the game. I mean, I remember UConn early on in their early run, that was their only flaw, is they could not shoot foul shots. You know, so it's important to go over that in practice, and it plays a big part in the games.
I always thought it was free money.
Yeah.
The opportunity to score points, and you got to take advantage of it. If you didn't, put the work and shame on you, because
Right.
easy way to score some points.
Now, a heartbreaking loss to Shelton. You lose 45-43. Wow. Again, 12 points, 19 points. But, Greg, a moment that people will never forget in that game is when you were stopping the ball from going out of bounds, and you just threw it up, and it went in, and you made the shot. Talk about that moment.
Well, that actually wasn't that game.
Oh, it wasn't Shelton?
It was against Shelton, but that was when we were playing Shelton in Shelton. Yeah.
Well, talk about that a little bit. Making a shot from out of bounds. I mean, that had to.
it was kind of a fluke thing.
Were you shocked? I mean, did you?
Well, I wasn't expecting it to go in, but at the same time, I'm going to take the shot. You know what I mean? It was fun. It was.
What was it like playing in their building? Because their court looked like the Carrier Dome in Syracuse. I mean, it looked huge. I mean, talk about playing in Shelton's gym.
It's different, exactly, a mini Carrier Dome, because the depth, shooting behind, that wall is so far. And being a shooter, it's like, wow, to get readjusted, it takes you a little bit.
Right.
But nice crowds, Housatonic Shelton, a Valley game.
How devastating was that loss, though? Because that's against a Valley team. That's against a team that Derby doesn't normally beat. I think Tanner did beat them once, but that's a hard team to beat. And Coach Walsh said that was their toughest game of the year. Talk about how devastating that was.
That was about as tough as it gets.
Morgan was, we were devastated. Joe Lucas hit a fadeaway from the elbow. I'll never forget that. And I'm like, damn. And we stayed in that anteroom for a long time, and Morgan was devastated, crying, and it was just really bad. It was like, wow, we worked our butt off, we deserved to win, and we didn't. That was tough.
You say no moral victories, but did you at least come out of that game saying, guys, we can play with anybody? Or
no,
it was the opposite.
Before going in, we're beyond moral victories.
Right. So you wanted that win bad, yeah.
We felt.
And to hold them to 45 points, I mean.
Yeah, they were a very good team.
And I don't really remember exactly, but I think they had beaten us pretty good in their own gym earlier in the season.
Right.
So that was a tough loss. I mean, that stung, no question.
Would you say that was probably your toughest loss in your high school career?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, that, again, Derby didn't have too much success against Shelton, and when you play a game like that, it's even more heartbreaking. You'd rather lose by 30 than lose a game like that by 2.
Yeah.
It was just devastating.
Well, because we needed it so bad, too.
Yes.
So now you're 4-10. So now you have to go 4-2 the rest of the way. I mean, did you think it was hopeless or no?
Never.
Never. So you never wavered. No.
Yeah.
And what about you? I mean.
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't specifically remember what I was saying to myself, back then. But I figured as long as we had as many games left.
Did you guys know though that you had to win 8 wins to make the tournament?
Yes.
So you were cognizant of that. Yeah.
Believe me, yes. When we were 4-12, we were very aware. Like, okay, here's what we got to do.
Right. So you knew what it took to get there. Which is
always aware of that. Yes.
Right. So you follow that off with a tough loss to Amity, another heartbreaker. But again, 14 points, 20 rebounds, 12 points, 16 rebounds. I mean, you guys are having a tremendous senior season. Maybe the record isn't good at the moment, but every game you both are double figures. And I mean, that's hard to do in Derby. It doesn't happen. I mean, you've seen some Derby scores where they score 35 points as a team. I mean, so were you satisfied how you were playing that year as an individual?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Right, and same with you. I mean, did you think you could do better, or did you think you were doing as good as you could do?
I always think you can do better. And I think the expectations were put upon us. We relished it. And it just burns, honestly. I just remember, like, damn, we're just not getting there.
Right. And Amity was another good program, too.
They're double L schools. I mean, my God, the pull they have from, it just, and that always, small school, that always, talk about a chip on your shoulder.
And don't forget this. I don't want to, attack anybody. But a lot of times back then, teams practiced year round.
Oh, please, yeah.
You know, Derby didn't have that luxury, but a lot of teams did. I mean, if you think some of them weren't practicing year round, you're crazy.
Yeah,
And they had that advantage too. Because a lot of these other schools, they didn't have football players that, you know, it was just strictly basketball.
Exactly.
So, you know, that made it even tougher right there.
I think as a key point there, Mike, you had strictly just basketball players. In other larger schools, they were so large, they specialized in it. You know, 40% of our starting lineup played football. So,
Yeah.
you know, just to transition, it's for these gentlemen, that's a tough transition. It's a different game. But you know what? Derby had such few exceptional athletes. You know, our pool was so small.
Yeah.
We did what we had to do. In football, basketball,
Right.
baseball, wrestling program was fantastic. So, you know, we took pride in being a small school that tried to excel and compete against the big boys and beat the big boys.
Right.
Right.
So,
Greg, let me ask you. I used to always hear certain players would tell me when they played a different sport, if they didn't have the best game, Coach Lou would razz them a little bit. Did he ever do that to you in school? Say, you know, Spock, you didn't play good last night, or like joking around? I mean, was he good like that, good natured and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't usually about the game in general. It was more about one play.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
That's-
but he kind of did it to keep you loose, you know,
Yeah.
to kind of take the pressure
Absolutely.
off a little bit.
Yeah.
He was a great guy as well.
Oh, no question. Yeah.
You know, so now, you know, at this point, like I said, you're 4-11. There's no margin for error here. You have to get this done, or 4-10, I'm sorry. The big win against Cheshire in overtime. Ken, you hit the shot with about, I want to say 48 seconds left, and you put them ahead by 2. Talk about that overtime win against Cheshire, because you guys ended up winning, I believe, by 8 points.
yeah,
when
but
all-
I think we were 4-12.
4-12,
We were
yeah.
4-12. We had won
Right.
the last 4 games.
Yeah.
And we had Cheshire to start things off, and I'll never forget.
And they
Greg-
were a good team that year,
They were a
Cheshire.
very good team.
Yeah.
Greg stole the ball, hit me in the corner. I made it, and
Right.
like, okay, we can do this. And I think that was a big win for us.
That was an overtime win.
Yes.
And that's amazing that we were 4-12 and first game we needed was overtime win. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But
and
I
mean-
think we sensed it. We knew,
Yeah.
like, oh my God.
Well, we were playing. It was desperation time
Yeah.
at that point. Yeah.
And
But I mean, talk about, I mean, I can't remember the last time, I'll be honest with you, that's the last time I think Derby beat Cheshire in basketball. If I do the math, I don't think they've ever beaten Cheshire again, so that was their last win ever. I mean, talk about what a thrill that victory was. I mean, because you have to enjoy the victories too. You can't just say, well, we got 3 games to win still. You have to at least enjoy them when they're happening. So what was that like?
I think that's one thing Greg and I did. We enjoyed every
Yeah.
minute
It was so much fun.
playing together, practicing, going out, the games itself. I don't think we cheated ourselves
Yeah.
of anything, especially that year.
Yeah. I agree with you.
So it wasn't like the totality of everything. We enjoyed ourselves tremendously.
Yeah. we
Right.
Definitely did.
And I mean, a win like that's got to boost your confidence. I'm sure the whole team got confident after that game because.
I think they saw we can do it. I think our fans like.
Now,
a game
do
like
you guys remember ever beating Cheshire before that ever?
that- Never.
No. So I mean, that was probably your first win, and it was your last game against them. And I mean, you could always say that in basketball, we beat.
Yeah.
We were the last
thought
team
of
to
that
beat
way, but yeah.
Cheshire.
And you know what? It won't shock me if they've never beaten them since that win either, like Mike said.
Oh, an opportunity to play. Yeah, but you're right.
So now you get the rematch against Seymour. And I know you want this game bad. You lost a heartbreaker to them. Greg, you finished with 21 points. You get 17 rebounds. Big game by Glenn Gretadoria, too. He scores 17. Talk about beating Seymour. It's a Valley rivalry. You lose to Shelton, but at least you come back and you get to beat them. Your final game against Seymour, you're able to get a win. Talk about that win.
I think once again we had to do what we had to do, and at that point, I don't care who we were playing. We just know we needed the W. It's even sweeter against a Valley team like Seymour, who beat
Right.
us before. And I thought, honestly, we were a much better team than they were.
Yeah. And
Disappointed to lose.
we were just playing so desperate. I mean,
Right.
it's really, hard to put it into words, but I mean, we really were.
Right.
I mean, we wanted to make the tournament so bad.
Right. So now you're 6-12, and you know you got to get that game against North Haven. You can't even talk about the game against East Haven till you beat North Haven. I'm sure you guys had and I think you guys only had one practice because I think you had to play them on a Thursday night. So you didn't really get a lot of preparation. At this point, were you guys just playing on fumes, Ken?
I think adrenaline fumes, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it. We could have played back to back to back. We didn't care. It's just it's like, listen, line them up, let's play them.
Right.
So I don't think we thought, in being young and foolish and just exhilaration. I think we relished it. It was
Right.
pretty cool.
So talk about the North Haven game a bit, because, again, you guys, it looked hopeless for you guys. You guys were down by 4 with only about 20 seconds left, and Greg, you hit a 3. I mean, you hit a 3-pointer, you cut it to 1. Number one, did you ever take outside shots, or was this just one?
No 3-pointers though. It was a 3-point range, but no 3-pointer.
Yeah.
Okay, according to the thing. It
No,
said
no 3-point line when we played.
Right,
Yeah.
but did you ever take outside shots?
I took outside shots.
Right, but that was a big shot, cuts the lead to 1, and then
You
Ken.
know, it's funny. I remember that shot, and I actually have the tape at home of that game.
Oh,
I
really?
haven't seen it in a long time, but Coach Morgan, I remember when I was going up for that shot, he was yelling, "No,
No, good shot! Love you, Greg.
exactly." But I mean, there wasn't much time left in the game at that point in
Right.
time.
And you knew
It
who
was
was going to shoot the ball, either Greg or
Yeah.
myself, for the
Yeah.
most part.
Right, and then Ken, with 8 seconds left, you hit a big shot. You put them up by 1. I mean, and you guys would win that game by 1 point. Now you're 7-12. Talk about that, because you get the game-winning shot with 8 seconds left. You hit the big shot to cut it to 1. Just talk about that sequence, how great that was.
I mean, again, it's just, it puts a smile on my face thinking about it right now, to be honest with you. I mean,
It's great to hear. It's
Yeah,
like, wow.
it was just so much fun. I mean, it really was. I mean, again, these are teams that, historically, traditionally, that we didn't.
And you
not
had a
only
tough
didn't
loss
beat, but
against
didn't
North
compete
Haven, then
with.
you come back and you beat them. Had to be. And Ken, what's it like? I mean, you're a 16-year-old kid. What's the feeling like to know you hit the winning shot? I mean, do you even get to sleep that night, or?
I mean, you're on cloud 9. You're sleep. This is what you dream about. This is all the
Right.
practices.
And you're also, like, don't kid yourselves. You guys play for your parents too. Like, you want them to say, "Great job," So that had to be a good feeling.
You play for the town. I mean, you
Right.
want that. I mean, that's pretty cool. But everyone's so vested and invested in the team itself and want to do well. And I think everyone was riding with us as far as getting to 8 wins. We never did it in a long time. Good team. It's like, wow, that's pretty cool. And I think everyone was just, like feeling it, excited, the energy, and we just fed off it. I mean, they helped tremendously.
Yeah, it did.
It was a community.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
So now last game of the year, win or lose, you win, you're in. Now tell me this. I heard this story too, that it snowed that night. And I heard that if they canceled the game, they weren't going to make it up. The tournament people were going to just say, you know what, you can't get in. And Al Vitello begged East Haven to play that game because you guys needed it.
I remember that game. It was awful out, how bad the snow was. And you're right, because the parents came out that next day, or the next 2 days after that, and if we didn't get the game in, we weren't going to qualify. And it was really bad. And I mean, East Haven's a hike.
Right.
And I remember him beg and plead, listen, we don't have a chance to qualify for states. So I give them credit for making that trek down there in some really bad weather. But
Right.
I
Good
was
job
very
by
nervous.
East Haven for East Haven could have been difficult and not played it. So good job by them.
Absolutely.
To
Yeah.
play the game, because I think at that point they were in the tournament
Oh,
already. Yeah.
They had a good team. Paul McCormick, I remember, forget that.
Yeah.
They had some very good ball players there.
Yeah.
So I mean that's an interesting story. You almost didn't make the tournament without even getting on
weather.
the court. That would have really stung for years. You would
Good
have
research, Mike, because I remember that very clearly.
Right. You
Oh
would have
my
been
God.
thinking about that forever.
That would have been devastating.
Yeah.
That really would be.
So it's funny. In '96, the Derby basketball team won 7 games. They had to go to East Haven to try to win their 8th game to make the tournament. Fell short by 4 points. '82, you guys go there. And again, 20 points, 16 points. Again, these double figures are the big reason why you guys win these games. It's the little things, too. Talk about that game, Ken, and just talk about, and Greg, if I'm not mistaken, we'll go with Ken first, but that was finally the game where you were able to dunk, correct?
No.
No.
Okay. Well, I'm going to have to yell at Ronnie Leno. Because
Amity.
Ronnie
Listen,
Leno.
I was giving you that.
Listen, let's just take a break. It was Amity.
Amity, okay.
Okay? And we stole the ball. I'm ahead of him. I'm wide open. And I busted chops to the date. He comes down like, oh my God. So John Thomas, one of their exceptional ball players on the Amity team, I'm sitting there talking like, he's going to dunk it. He's going to dunk it. He slams it down. And this is Derby. No guys dunking Derby.
Right.
So the place erupts. John DeFrancisco's on the clock. So, we're all jacked up. We're getting back into the game. We're playing Amity. He dunks. People going crazy. The clock got all screwed up.
Yeah.
So we had like a
Very
5-minute delay trying to get the time right, kind of that whole momentum.
Right.
And I always busted his chops. I was wide open, and he didn't pass it to me. So, but
Hey,
And you
the only
weren't-
thing I saw was the rim.
Now let me ask you: were you able to dunk in non-games like practice and stuff?
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
So you just had never
I mean,
done
for
it
2
in a
years,
game.
I was
right?
able to dunk at the beginning of my junior year, and I was looking for that. I never got a chance my entire junior year.
So let me tell you the story that Ronnie Leno tells me, because he was on the team. He said right before you guys pulled away against East Haven, you were maybe up by 4. He said right at the end, I think maybe you dish him the ball, somebody dishes him the ball, Greg dunks, and then Greg goes down the court and goes like this, going number 1. Now maybe that happened in the tournament as far as the number 1, but it wasn't a dunk in that game, huh?
No, not against East Haven. No,
Yeah,
it
okay,
wasn't-
so
it
when I
wasn't
see
against
Ronnie
East
on
you
Haven.
did go like this, though.
I probably did. I mean, I was just like, I was so happy that
I
I,
know.
finally got a chance, a breakaway.
Yeah, he was dunking easily. I mean, so
Yeah.
athletic and powerful. But our offense, we didn't get, fast paced.
So take me to the final seconds of that game. When you know you're going to win, let me ask you, did you guys have the ball last? Were you guys just dribbling the ball to run out the clock?
No, because I'll never forget that. It was, I made 4 foul shots at the end, and we were down, and we made it in Glen Doria. We were up 3 points or 2 points with like a couple seconds left to go, and Glen Doria made 2 foul shots.
Wow.
And we just knew, like, okay, we got it. It was you talk about our foul shooting.
Yeah, that's what did
think
it, yeah.
At the end, it came through. Just our defense and our will
Yeah.
and desire to win.
So when the buzzard sounds, do you guys go nuts? I mean, do you start running like you won the championship?
Yeah.
What was it like?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to put into words because, it was just such an accomplishment.
But Greg,
for
you
us,
had just
know?
won a Housatonic title in
Yeah.
football. In a sport like basketball, making the tournament is like a championship because it's so hard to get there in the Housatonic
Yes.
League. You're not playing Old Saybrook and Westbrook.
Right.
You're playing North Haven, Lyman Hall, Shelton. So to just get 8 wins and 7 of those wins were against Hoosie teams.
Right.
Yep.
So to get those 8 wins, I mean, that had to feel like what was more gratifying? I think they're both the same, but if you had to pick one, was it the Hoosie or that tournament berth?
Jeez, Mike, that's a great question. I mean, Housatonic League titles in football, they were fairly
And that was Lou's
frequent.
first in 5 years. So
Was it really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a tough question. I never really thought about it, but they were they were both fantastic. They're just
Right.
such a a great way to end your high school career, winning a Housatonic League title in football,
Making
and then
the
making
tournament.
the tournament in a tough Housatonic League in
Right.
basketball. Yeah.
Now, Ken, did you ever win a championship at any level, like in Biddy or?
Yeah, in Biddy.
So you experienced that. This had to be number 1, though, right? Making this tournament.
I think just a sense of relief, pride that
Yeah.
we all shared in it, and we
Yeah.
worked so hard, and people counted us out, and just that sense of like you never quit.
And it was an away game. That's even
it wasn't.
sweeter. Oh, it wasn't.
It was
an
a
away.
home game.
It was home. Okay.
Yep.
So East Haven had to come to you guys. Okay.
Yep, it was
so
a home game, and it was just nothing better.
So on your court.
on our court,
Yeah.
I remember
That's
the
right.
middle.
Because John. Yeah.
It was tremendous. It's one of those feelings like, you know what? This is why you play sports. This is why you play varsity. Whatever it may be, whatever sport. This is why you do it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, did you kind of take a sigh of relief after it was over? Like, we did it? Like, because you're going through it and you don't know if it's going to happen, and this is the goal. And if you don't reach that goal, it's always going to stay with you. I mean,
it's
was
gonna
there
sting.
there a sigh of relief when it happened?
I think when we got 4-12, yeah, a sigh of relief. I think if you look at the season itself, we expected double-digit wins.
Yeah.
We expected 12 wins. I think that our goal was 12-8. At least in my mind, I think he and I talked about
Yeah.
it.
Right.
Anything less than that, because we're a better team. So, you have to adjust your expectations. But yeah, it was a great sense of relief and pride.
And guys, a couple of days later, Coach Morgan said that he's won championships. He's been a part of great teams. He said that was the greatest moment in his coaching career, was to get into that tournament, because he said the way these kids played and how they didn't give up. So as wacky as he was, as crazy as he was, that team was special for him, and
Yeah.
that was his greatest accomplishment
That's nice
as
to
a
hear.
head coach. Let me ask you this. Years later, Ken, I'll start with you. I mean, when you see Derby struggling like the way you do, and you see how hard it is, do you appreciate it more just to know that you were able to accomplish that?
Listen, you know, I'm an Oxford guy now. I'm always want Derby to do well. It's difficult, but I see how many leagues they've been in, and no sense of stability over the last 20, 25 years. I take great pride because I think, as Greg said, the Housatonic League was a premier Connecticut conference, and to be part of that and to be a Class S school competing against the big boys, yeah, it was tough, but to make that state tournament, get 7 wins, it's like, yeah, that's pretty damn good. That's pretty accomplished, and we were pumped.
Right.
Yeah.
Greg,
So-
do you tend to appreciate it? Did you obviously appreciated it then, but did you appreciate it years later when you saw how bad Derby has been over the years?
Well,
And
I mean,
seeing,
of course, I mean, it's, you know, I certainly don't like hearing about how
Right.
bad they've been, and yeah, I know that they haven't had very much success, but I don't think their lack of success over the last, 25 years or so makes me appreciate it anymore. I just think that it was, I mean, it was just a great accomplishment, and again, for us to win those last 4 games in the fashion that we did, I mean, they were 4 really tough games and 4 close games.
Yeah, and to do it with your best friends,
Yeah.
Rick Mester, it's like, wow, it's like, guys,
Yeah.
it doesn't get any better,
and
life is simple.
And that's the thing, like, you guys have remained friends from the time you were freshmen to now. I could think of a time when you guys were arguing. You loved Bo Jackson. You thought Bo Jackson was the best you ever saw.
Yeah.
Ken's like, no way, Greg. You guys are going at it. But the friendship's always been there.
We just never lost it. We don't talk all that often, but when we do, it's like we just pick up to where we are.
Exactly, yeah.
So
Right. Ken, when you look back on it all, what is the thing you're most proudest of as far as just, playing, I'm sure the tournament, but just as a player, what was the thing you were proud of yourself the most?
I think the sense of resilience, never giving up. There were times junior year where I expected more of myself and I wasn't playing as much as I wanted to sometimes.
Right.
Now, there were certain games my junior year I didn't start, and I took that very personal, and I was pissed. But as I always tell my boys, you have choices to make in life. What are you going to do with it? And shut up, work harder, and earn your time. So I think that sense of resiliency and things go wrong, what are you going to do? It's about character. That's what I'm most proud of.
Right. And Greg, what would you say you're most proud of?
I mean, just always playing hard all the time.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I ever took a play off, to be honest with you,
Right.
I would say that.
Well, guys, it's been a lot of fun. Hard to believe we did 2 parts already, but I really do appreciate you both coming on. And when I look back, I mean, you two are right up there with some of the best Derby basketball players we've ever seen, and athletes as well. And I really do thank you both for coming on.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
Mike.
We
It's a lot
appreciate
of fun,
It was
yeah.
great.
Thank you. So there you have it, folks. We talked about the 2003 Derby basketball team. That was a tremendous year. The one advantage they had, though, is they got to play a Class S schedule. When you talk about the 1982 team, it was a tough road to get to the state tournament, playing in the very tough Housatonic League. At 4-12, they definitely could have just gave up, but they never did. Players like Ritter, Bartone, Gretadoria, Mester, Chidoba, Spock, those guys saw what they wanted to see, and that was get to the tournament. They weren't going to let anything stop them. When you look back at the 1982 Derby basketball team, you look at it with pride and dedication. They'll always be champions, and they'll always be winners. For Hometown Heroes, I'm Mike Kenichi saying, good night, everyone.